What's up, yo? My name's Moleman3000, and today we're going to be answering the age-old question, would you survive in the world of Dungeons and Dragons? Now, before we actually get into it, I'm going to tell a little story just to provide some much-needed context. Here we go. Boom. My story is about Lil Jimmy, who spends most of his days in his parents' basement playing World of Warcraft with the boys. Now, one night after a long 12-hour session, he finally decides to call it quits and head to bed. When Lil Jimmy wakes up, however, it isn't in his bed. No, he does not in fact wake up in his bed, but he wakes up in an inn familiar to one you would find in World of Warcraft or Dungeons and Dragons. He takes the time to walk around a bit, and lo and behold, there's orcs and elves and gnomes and goblins and all sorts of creatures walking about. Now, since Jimmy is so proficient in World of Warcraft and a bunch of other fantasy-related games, he makes the bold assumption that he would just do swimmingly in this fantasy realm. He picks up the first quest that he finds, wipe out a goblin camp to the northeast, and confidently makes his way there. What Jimmy doesn't know is that when he woke up in this realm, his stats are not one of his fictitious characters in World of Warcraft or Dungeons and Dragons, but of his real-life stats. Now, what this means for Jimmy is that he has a -1 modifier on all of his stats because, well, Jimmy's just absolutely terrible at everything other than video games. So when he finally arrives at his destination, he finds that he's actually woefully unprepared. Without any forethought or preparation, Jimmy runs into the camp, screaming at the top of his lungs, iron sword clutched in his hands. Now, because he's screaming, the goblin camp is made immediately aware of his presence, and they make quick work of him. With arrows coming at him from every direction and goblins at his front and back, well, let's just say no one has ever heard from little Jimmy again. Now, the point of this story is not to scare you, but instead to encourage you. You are not a little Jimmy, or at least you won't be. As long as you watch this video all the way to the end, you will be prepared for the inevitable day that you are magically transported into the world of Dungeons and Dragons. What I am offering you in this video is the 4 building blocks to not just becoming an adventurer, not just a level 20 character, but a living legend. And with that, folks, let's get into it. Building block number 1. Now, for those of you who have played Dungeons and Dragons before, you would be familiar with the process of creating a character. You start with a blank sheet, you pick a race, and then you begin the tedious process of picking a class and filling out all the stats. Now, if you had the task of selling a class to somebody, what would you do? Would you tell them what the classes are capable of at level 1? No, of course you wouldn't do that, because you're an intelligent individual. And because you are an intelligent individual, you would explain to this person what the class can do at level 20. Level 1 characters? They can't do anything. When a character is at level 1, they have the lowest stats possible while still maintaining their rank as an adventurer. And they don't have many abilities, which really doesn't inspire that much confidence. Since we are trying to turn ourselves into a mighty Dungeons and Dragons character, why wouldn't we apply the same principle? If we want to become a level 20 character in Dungeons and Dragons, we must first imagine what this level 20 character would look like. With that being said, what does your level 20 character look like? What does our level 20 character look like? What kind of skills and proficiencies do they have? What kind of class would they be? How much money do they have? Do they have a family? What are their motivations? Now, what we are actually doing when we're asking these questions is we're beginning the process to build a vision for ourselves. What does our ideal self look like? What does our ideal future look like? This right here is the foundation upon which the rest of the process is built. Now, you may be asking, why exactly do I need to have a vision for my future self? What does this have to do with D&D? I'm kind of confused. What are you talking about? The reason we need to have a vision for our future is because it will drive us to that better future. Our vision will act as a guide for us along the difficult terrain of life. So an important question to ask and to understand is what would actually happen if we don't have a vision for our lives? Why is this actually important? In my experience, what I have found is that if you don't have a vision, you're doomed to wander the earth aimlessly without any meaning or purpose in your life. And, well, it's just kind of, it's defeating. If you don't have a vision for your life, you may end up like little Jimmy. But that isn't possible because none of us here are little Jimmys. Now that we have established step number 1, build a vision for your life, we can move on to step number 2. Now, step number 2 actually consists of the work you will have to do in order to make your vision that you built in step number 1 possible. Now, what this may consist of may vary depending on what our goals are, what our vision is. But if we want to be the mightiest level 20 character to ever live, I would start with the strategy of optimizing your stats. Now, this particular game of D&D is not constrained by the rules and limited ability scores given to us in the actual rules of D&D. No, my friends, we are throwing balance right out the window because we are trying to break the game with our unreasonably high stats, which makes a very happy spiffing Brit. This means that our ability score improvements will not be coming from the game, but will instead be coming from ourselves. Which means if we all want to improve our strength score, we're gonna need to start working out. If we want to improve intelligence, we're gonna need to start investing some time and money into books. If we want to improve charisma, we're gonna need to start talking to people. If we want to improve dexterity, I guess we need to take up parkour, or we just need to stretch more, or knitting, I guess. What I'm thinking for constitution is that we would need to work on our cardio, because constitution is all about how much punishment can you take without falling down, or how much punishment can you take and get back up. And if we want to improve our wisdom score, we would just need to simply experience life and reflect on our successes and failures. Now, this all may sound very, very difficult, and trust me, it is, but listen to me when I say the results are well worth it. Now, it's very important that we improve not just one of these things, but all of these things combined. Now, if we have learned anything from Avatar: The Last Airbender, it's that everything is connected. If you work to improve one stat score, it will affect the rest of them in some way, shape, or form. Just as an example, let's say someone wanted to play a wizard, and a wizard's main statistic is intelligence. And because of this fact, this player sees no purpose in putting any sort of points into strength or constitution. Now, wizards at the start of the game are squishy enough. They already have probably the lowest AC and the lowest amount of health. So a wizard with a -1 modifier on their constitution score is going to be a nightmare not only for the wizard, but for the rest of the party. If a wizard takes any sort of hit from an enemy, it's already bad news. But if this wizard has a low constitution score, it's even worse. One hit from something like a goblin with a dagger could potentially mean curtains, especially if this wizard has a low constitution score. But if this wizard spent extensive amounts of time in the gym, lifting weights and doing cardio, he'll stand a better chance of not only tanking that hit, but he may be able to do some hefty damage without spending a precious spell slot. A sturdier mage makes for a sturdier party. Now, that is one example, and I could spend all day coming up with 40 billion other examples, but just note that this concept can apply for any class and any statistic. Now, before we move on to point number 3, we have a word from our sponsor.
This video is brought to you by His Royal Majesty Prince Drizicus Maximus, aka Sir Drizzleton of House Drizdonia. What do you have to say, sir?
Thank you, Your Grace. Now, back to the video.
Building block number 3.
There is no party of one in D&D. Guys, it really doesn't matter how powerful your character will get, because there will always be enemies that can squash you like a bug. Try taking on a Draco Lich or a Beholder or a Baylor all by yourself. Doesn't sound too fun. The importance of the group, however, is not just to survive. It is essential for us to thrive. Now, what this means is that who we surround ourselves with will have an impact on how we interact and perceive the world. I myself right now am blessed to be surrounded with good influences, but that wasn't always the case. Absolutely not. If even one person around us is negative and bitter and resentful and angry, then it will inevitably have an effect on us. And the longer we are surrounded by this negativity, the greater the chance it will influence us and take hold. It is good to be in a community with people who actually fundamentally care about our well-being. It is even better to have a group of friends, a guild, one could say, that share the same interests, that share the same values, who want to grow and get better in any sort of way. If we want to go fast, we'll go alone, but we won't get far. If we want to get far, we go with a group. Team members help us stay balanced. Team members also help us stay accountable. If you skip out on going to the gym or miss a D&D session, you aren't just letting yourself down, you are letting your guild down. If you or we are lucky enough to be in a guild, then the road to level 20 is no longer just about us, it's about the entire team. All of us, every single one of us want to get to level 20, but the only way we can do that is together. Team members help us stay accountable, but they also help us stay consistent, which is the fourth building block of this video. Consistency is key, my friends. We cannot stay clean off of yesterday's shower, which simply means that just because we went to the gym today, just because we read a chapter today, just because we did all the things we were supposed to do today, does not mean we get to not do it tomorrow. One day does not a hero make. What makes a hero is time and perseverance. What makes a hero is the grit, determination, and discipline to get up and do it all again tomorrow. And the next day, 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 and you get the point. It did not take us a day to learn how to walk. It didn't take a day to learn how to talk. It didn't take a day to learn how to ride a bike, and it most certainly did not take one day to learn how to read. It took days, it took weeks, it took months, it took years, and some of us still aren't really good at any of these things. The road to level 20 is built from blood, sweat, and tears. The road to level 20 is long and harrowing. But we won't only survive. No, we will not just survive. We will thrive. We will conquer the journey and the world of D&D because we have a vision for what our level 20 character would look like. We have the determination to improve our stats to get there. We have the desire to find our guild, and we have the discipline to stay consistent. My friends, we are not little Jimmies. No, we will become legends. Guys, I wanted to take the time now to say thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. If you like my content, please do me a favor and click this button here. It is going to take you to a playlist of videos that breaks down each one of these concepts down even further. In these videos, I'm going to provide more context, I'm going to be more specific, and I'm going to give you more details, and I'm going to give a more thorough explanation of how we can actually go down the road to level 20 together. Once again, guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.
Sir, please. You agreed to do this sponsorship and you are simply being negligent. What would your parents think? What would your father think? Now you're eating grass? This is simply disgraceful. Have you no shame, sir? Have you no shame at all? This is the future of our kingdom. You have had no reservations on being camera before. And now you're just simply ignoring me. Rude. Rude. Simply rude.